Hello, welcome to the Movie Zone. Today we are recapping HBO's House of Dragon Episode 4. This week, we see one interesting turn after the other, all beginning with the homecoming of Daemon Targaryen to King's Landing. See what happens on this episode. Spoilers ahead. Let's begin. The episode starts with suitors presenting to the crown princess at Dragonstone. She's reviewing what people have to say for her hand in marriage, but the men have nothing interesting to contribute, are too young or too old. One presenter is much too young and is heckled by the crowd. After receiving a threat, he pulls his sword and the princess decides to leave. On her way out, in a surprise of events, the young kid defeats the heckler and retains his honor. On her way back to King's Landing, Rhaenyra is confronted by a dragon, supposedly Daemon on his way back from his conquests. In the Red Keep, people are summoned inside the throne room while the king arrives. Daemon soon reappears and presents an axe to add to the Iron Throne. He reveals he is called the King of the Narrow Sea, and they have defeated the Crab Beater, but he only looks to one throne, the one occupied by his brother, and asks for Viserys' forgiveness. The two make up and leave together, hand in hand. It seems like all is well. In the gardens, Viserys and Daemon are talking with the queen. Rhaenyra comes to join the circle, but the king and his brother keep the conversation short, so the princess leaves. After watching Rhaenyra leave, Alicent goes over and talks with her estranged friend. They start to talk about the possible husbands and the line of suitors waiting to take Rhaenyra's hand. Alicent speaks the arrangement is not bad, but Rhaenyra does not want that life. The two talk of the past and the hardships they face and share a moment as friends. When alone, Rhaenyra confronts Daemon about his intentions and his mood since they last saw each other. He reveals he only wants to be back at home, but she does not buy it. They talk of her problems and Viserys being mad at her for not wanting to marry. But Daemon tries to convince her it's only political, but she counters that marriage is just for men. The conversation deepens when Daemon talks of his wife and the need of women to birth children. Rhaenyra is conflicted. At the small council, they discuss the victory of Daemon and the Sea Snake. When the Hand tells them of an impending marriage that could threaten the kingdom, it forces them to choose alternatives. This alerts Rhaenyra thinking it could only be her they trade for. Alone in her room, Rhaenyra discovers a small map hidden in a bag. The map reveals a secret passage she follows in discreet clothing, passing a huge dragon head. Following the passage outside, she finds Daemon waiting in plain clothes, and the two go into the city below. In the streets, they encounter all types of people, from drunks to musicians to tricksters playing with fire. A very interesting start to a night overall. Back in the streets, a group of thespians put on a play about a king and the battle for the heir to the throne between Rhaenyra and her child brother. The common people have a low opinion of a woman inheriting the throne. They believe the throne should go to her younger brother, Aegon, because of his sex. She is quick to dismiss the heckling crowd, but Daemon tells her their opinions are important and valuable to listen to. She continues through the crowds, indulging in a nibble of street food, before being taunted by her uncle to pay for her indulgences and taking off in a sprint down the road. She is soon met face to face with a city watch guard, who recognizes the princess and her uncle, as she implores him not to make a scene. We then see Alicent in the castle, helping to wash her husband, whose body we see plagued with wounds and seemingly diseased. She tries to connect with him, dismissing the servants all the while, but things seem different between them. Later, the queen is summoned to the royal bedchamber. You can clearly feel her hesitation, but even as queen, her final decision is overruled by that of her husband. We see them together in the king's bed, Alicent clearly unhappy. The princess and Daemon find themselves in the midst of a brothel, Rhaenyra's first exposure to this kind of surrounding. He takes her downstairs as he begins to explain the intimacy between connecting with bodies. He emphasizes marriage is only duty that cannot be avoided, but everything and everyone else they choose is by their own will. Daemon starts to kiss Rhaenyra, only seemingly to ignite further passion within her. But before they can go further, Daemon's incompetence and apparent regret of his actions prevent them from continuing. Leaving Rhaenyra alone, on her way out of the brothel, she catches the eye of a young spy who follows her out. Back in the safety of the castle, she returns to find Criston Cole, bewildered to see the princess out of her chamber. Rhaenyra, full of energy and wine from her adventures with her uncle, teases Criston by taking away his helmet. After enough playful back and forth, they share a kiss. His reluctance is obvious. However, she not only strips away his doubts, but also his armor. In one moment, she removes his white cloak, the symbol of a Kingsguard purity and devotion to his sword, and we see Criston doubt himself and question his actions. As a Kingsguard, he has sworn to take no wives and father no children. His hesitation is brief, and the two continue where she and her uncle left off minutes earlier. Outside the castle, the Hand Otto Hightower receives word from the same spy we previously saw outside the brothel. The next morning, Daemon is awoken by his wife, Mysar, as she receives payment from the young spy for his report to the Hand. Was she a part in tipping off Daemon and Rhaenyra's rendezvous at the brothel to the Hand? Back in the Red Keep, Otto reports to the king of the princess's behavior from the night prior. He tells him of the sightings of Rhaenyra and Daemon at a pleasure house, and the acts that ensued. Meanwhile, the queen overhears gossip from her father while lingering in the back of the room, but almost immediately the king does not believe the hearsay reported by his Hand. He refutes the claims and criticizes Otto for his blind ambition to see his offspring on the Iron Throne. After their heated discussion, Rhaenyra is brought a message from the queen by her Kingsguard, Criston Cole. They meet in the gardens to discuss the accusations. Alicent believes the rumors are true, strengthened by the endorsement from her father, and paired with the queer customs of House Targaryen in regards to familiar lovers. The princess denies all rumors and claims them as tremendous falsehood. Rhaenyra demands to know who made these rumors so they may be reprimanded for their accusations. Although she does admit to being present at the brothel, she says Daemon abandoned her for some other woman, prompting her to return home. She claims that Daemon never touched her and swears it on her mother's memory. The queen buys it and compels her to be much more careful. That same morning, the Kingsguard dragged Daemon to see the king in the throne room. Daemon, still hurting from the night before, is slow to answer his brother's questions. He never once denies anything occurring between him and his niece, and instead offers to solve this problem for his brother by marrying Rhaenyra. Daemon justifies this as a consolation prize for his victory in the Stepstones. The king denies this request and banishes his brother from his sight and the capital, as we saw previously in episode 1. The king and queen discuss their situation privately in their apartments. We see Alicent taking the side of Rhaenyra, attempting to make the king see the light in her and the darkness and deception in that of Daemon. While the king does not trust Rhaenyra and feels she is to blame for her part in the matter, the queen confidently convinces in him that Rhaenyra is still a maiden and he must listen to what she has to say. Rhaenyra is escorted by the Kingsguard to the king's den. Inside the room, everyone cannot help notice the dagger, burning red within the fire. The king explains the significance of the writings etched in the dagger. From my blood, the prince that was promised, and his will be the song of ice and fire. For all you Game of Thrones fans, this is a bridge into the events we see 200 years later, in the long winter and battles with the White Walkers. All the while, the king discusses the importance of maintaining order not only within the house, but the realm. Viserys tells Rhaenyra she will wed the son of the sea snake, Laenor, and together the two houses will unite and usher in a new era of dragons. In response, Rhaenyra expresses her understanding towards her father's wishes, but further stresses her distrust for the Hand serving only his own ambition. She proclaims to her father she will obey his wishes to marry who he wants, but in return King Viserys must lead his people by example and allow no one to hinder their future. In the small council room, the Hand joins the king. Viserys recounts to him the death of his father, recounting how he was there when his father became the king. The king stresses how Otto has served the king and country far beyond any appreciation, but he nor his judgment can be trusted any longer. He removes Otto as Hand of the King and realigns himself with Rhaenyra as father and daughter, king and princess. In the final scene, back in the princess's apartments, the maester arrives to give a special detox tea to the princess. After inquiring with the maester on the purpose of this elixir, he clarified it is requested by the king to assist with removing any unwanted consequences from previous actions. What do you think of this episode? Do you think Daemon will become Hand of the King? Will Rhaenyra be betrothed anytime soon? Find out next week. Thanks for stopping by.